Haley, otherwise known as Princess Aspien, and welcome to my channel.
Just be me.
So for today's video, I wanted to be talking about autism traits in girls. Because one of the biggest stereotypes of autism is that it only affects boys. In fact, this stereotype is so common, not just in normal community, but in the health sector, so deeply to the point where most girls aren't diagnosed at all or aren't diagnosed until later in life. A lot of the time, autistic girls are actually misdiagnosed as so many other conditions, including OCD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, so many different things, when really, in reality, they could just be autistic. And the reason for this is because autism presents very, very differently in girls than it does to boys. And all of the common traits and symptoms that we know about autism are all very male-oriented traits. This leaves so many autistic girls misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, and completely under the radar and feeling really, really weird and confused about who they are. So, for today's video, I wanted to have a look at 10 autism traits in girls. Also, before we get started, look how cute my rainbow top is. I am completely obsessed with it. This top was gifted to me by The Vault, who are an incredible Australian company who make festival gear. I know that we haven't got festivals for a long time because Miss Rona has just put her face into everything right now. But for the time being, I just get to strut around this in my house. I am obsessed with it. It is so cute. I love this stuff. Please go and check it out. Anyway, let's move on to the video. Here are 10 autistic traits in girls. Number 1, relying on other girls to guide them and speak for them throughout the day. Understanding social cues is really, really difficult for anyone on the spectrum, but it presents a lot more deeply in a lot of autistic girls. Autistic girls tend to be extremely shy and also extremely self-aware. Because of this, and because of the understanding that they are different but they want to fit in, they often let other girls guide them, speak for them, and kind of show them how to act. They may follow other girls not just in their interest in their traits, but also in their behavior, which can mean that a lot of autistic girls can end up in the wrong situations and in the wrong groups throughout school. Number 2, passionate and limited interests. Now obviously, intense special interests are very much an autistic trait regardless of your gender. However, in autistic girls, these interests are usually based around things like animals and the arts. This includes literature, art, film, music, etc. While boys tend to have more of a science and technical brain, and their special interests could include things like science and mechanics and cogs and trains and stuff like that. Number 3, masking. I've spoken about masking in a lot of videos before, and I intend to do a complete video entirely about masking, but it is definitely an extremely important thing to talk about in this video as well. As I already spoke about, girls on the spectrum tend to be a lot more socially aware and aware of who they are and their circumstances, and because of this, try to do a lot more to fit in socially. Because of this, we often do things or don't do things to try and fit in. We put on a mask per se, hence the name masking. Things like forced eye contact, polite smiles, holding back stims, having pre-prepared jokes and scripts for when you're having a conversation, even things like mimicking other girls walking, their sense of styles, even their interests and passions. It's all masking. Masking can also mean that we mask back our emotions. We hold everything in until we're at a safe place, which is why a lot of the time at school, girls on the spectrum may appear completely normal. We keep our emotions intact. We don't let anyone see. In the wise words of Elsa, conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. And then as soon as we get home, oh, they know. They know. As soon as we get home and as soon as we're in a safe place when we know that we're okay and when we know that we don't have to keep our emotions back anymore, that's when meltdowns can happen, that's when breakdowns can happen, that's when all hell can break loose. Once again, it's all masking, and it's a very, very typical trait of autism. Number 4, broad imaginations. As opposed to young boys on the spectrum who tend to be quite limited and repetitive in their behavior, young girls tend to be a lot more imaginative when they play. This in itself could be a reason why so many girls are misdiagnosed, because structured and routine play and very limited imagination is a very, very intense autism trait which a lot of doctors look at when they're diagnosing. Yet, it affects young girls on the spectrum entirely different. In fact, young girls on the spectrum are extremely imaginative, usually more so than their neurotypical peers. Number 5, not wanting to play cooperatively. Following on from my last post, when I was growing up, playing make-believe was my favorite thing in the whole world, but I would do it in a lot of a different way than what other girls my age would. If you watched me, you would see that yes, I had a very, very broad imagination and I loved imagination play, but it was very, very different to the other kids. I wouldn't play per se. I would direct. I would make scenes. Similar to how it's really, really common to see autistic boys lining up their things by color or shape or style or size, autistic girls may do their own form of lining up, but it could be in the form of directing things, of needing things their own certain way. This can at times affect friendships, or a lot of times we prefer to play alone. Number 6, advanced vocabulary but limited conversation. Unlike boys on the spectrum, girls on the spectrum don't usually face any speech or language delay, and often are actually a lot more advanced than other neurotypical children that are the same age as them in terms of their language and speech skills. However, that does not mean by any means that we don't face communication struggles, because girl, we face them a whole lot. Communicating is often really, really difficult for us because we don't understand what to say and how to make conversation unless it's something that we're extremely interested in which case you can't shut us up. Have you heard how long I'll speak about One Direction for? We're not trying to be rude. We're not bored with you. Well, just kidding. So yes, while we may have very advanced language skills, our communication skills may often be not so much. Number 7. Depression and anxiety. Not so fun fact, autistic girls are more than 4 times more likely to experience depression than a neurotypical person. And roughly 40% of autistic girls have an anxiety disorder compared to 15% of neurotypical people. There's a few different reasons why professionals think that we are so much more prone to these conditions than other people, but a couple of different studies show that it could be because of our brain structure and function, a history of social distances, and an inability to be flexible and find responses when these feelings arise. Number 8, difficulty making and keeping friends. Man, this point's gotta trigger me, but someone's got to talk about it.
Why?
Because Chloe struggles with friends.
Good.
Good?
I'm your friend.
You're my friend. I don't struggle making friends with you. I've said this a few times before, but 93% of communication is non-verbal. As an autistic person, non-verbal cues can be really difficult for us. This can mean that we are often quite clueless when it comes to making friends, making conversation, and understanding how to spark the conversation to make friends. I did a video recently about how you can best support your friends that are autistic if you are not autistic. So if you're a non-autistic person watching this, please go and watch that video, because if you have an autistic friend that is really struggling, it could really help them. Shameless self-plug, but there we go. Number 9. Seizures. Seizures, epileptic fits, whatever you want to call them, are more common in autistic girls than they are in autistic boys. These can be triggered by a few different things. When I was younger, I used to have seizures based on light and sound triggers. I did a video about this before, but I was in the middle of a 1975 concert, having the time of my life, ready to see Maddie Healy, who, by the way, speaking of, signed my jacket, so what a time to be alive. In the middle of it, I could start to feel all these feelings. I could feel my eyes starting to go blurry, and then I could feel this like cloud starting to kind of like slowly gaze over, and I was like, oh damn, here we go, it's time. And then I just kind of collapsed in the middle of a mosh pit. Not the place that you want to have an epileptic fit in. Not fun, would not recommend it to anyone. A lot of autistic girls grow out of it, or at least find their triggers and try to stay out of them. Regardless, seizures can be a common trait for girls with autism. Number 10, normal development but a delay in adolescence. Many autistic girls can go through their entire childhood without being diagnosed, without even a symptom of a diagnosis, because so many of the diagnosable traits in childhood are all male-driven traits. However, when we get into high school, when we start connecting with our peers, and when we start to become a teenager, thank you for your contributions, that's often when the difference is shown, and it's also often when a lot of girls start to get diagnosed. As teenagers, autistic girls tend to develop a little bit later than neurotypical girls. Man, I remember other girls were talking about boys and makeup and boobs long before I cared about any of that. I mean, let's be honest, the only man I still care about is Harry Styles, and well, that's about as far as that's going. This can make autistic girls feel really left out, really excluded, and really unsure about their identity, especially when they're not diagnosed yet. Regardless, autistic girls, it is normal. There is nothing wrong with your brain. There is nothing wrong with the way that you are. It is perfect. Struggles in adolescence, it happens. It's a thing for everyone. But with autistic girls, it just seems to happen a little bit more, and can definitely be a very diagnosable trait, and at the very least, it can be an understanding of maybe potentially needing to get a diagnosis. That's it. That's our 10 autistic girl traits. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys learned something about yourself, about your kids, about your mate, about your neighbor down the road. I don't know. I hope you just had fun watching it. Let me know if you guys liked this video and if you want to see more videos like this, because I can definitely do more autism and girls videos, because that's what I am. So I know a lot about it. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing okay during quarantine. I hope you guys are looking after yourselves. I hope you guys are staying hydrated and staying kind to yourself and washing your hand and doing hobbies. And you know what? I really don't care. As long as you're not watching the news all day every day and getting upset, you're doing great. I'm really proud of you. Anyway, that's this week's video. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I don't mind. Do it if it makes you feel happy. Do it if it makes you feel good. And I will see you guys in my next video. I love you guys so much. Bye.
Just be